Imagine the person your community hates the most. Not just someone unpopular, but someone who sells out your neighbors to an occupying army for personal profit. In first-century Judea, that person is the local tax collector. His name is Levi, and he operates under the Roman publicanus system. The empire didn't collect its own taxes. They auctioned off the right to do it. The winner paid Rome a lump sum up front, and then squeezed whatever extra money they could out of the locals to line their own pockets. This image shows a Roman silver coin, the denarius, which features the profile of Caesar. Levi handles this currency every single day. Because the coin bears what Rome considered a divine image of the emperor, touching it constantly makes Levi a ritual lawbreaker, and his work for the occupiers makes him a traitor to his people. As a direct result of his profession, he is a social ghost. Levi is legally banned from testifying in local courts, and he is prohibited from stepping foot inside the local synagogue. Normally, a religious teacher would cross the street to avoid him. Instead, Jesus walks directly up to Levi's booth, looks at this pariah, and delivers a simple two-word invitation: "Follow me." Levi's response is immediate. He stands up, leaves the money on the table, and walks away from his lucrative extortion business. By choosing a man the town had collectively erased, Jesus is declaring that the local social boundaries are irrelevant to his mission. You might expect Levi to lay low or quietly try to rehabilitate his image. Instead, he throws a massive, loud banquet, and he invites a crowd composed entirely of fellow outcasts and corrupt officials. In the ancient Near East, sharing a meal was a legally and socially binding contract of friendship. This diagram shows how table fellowship functioned. By sitting down to eat, Jesus is publicly claiming these outcasts as his own. The religious elite, the Pharisees, see this and are completely bewildered. They cannot fathom why a man claiming to speak for God would publicly validate criminals by sharing a table with them. Jesus answers their confusion with a specific logic. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. You would never scold a physician for being inside a hospital, because treating the sick is the entire purpose of the profession. Jesus takes the Pharisees' focus on remaining separate and frames it as a failure to do the actual restorative work God assigned to them. Reeling from that logic, the Pharisees pivot. They demand to know why Jesus' followers are partying and eating at banquets when traditional devout disciples, like those of John the Baptist, are actively fasting. Jesus answers with a series of images. First, he calls himself the bridegroom. In Jewish scripture, that is a title for God himself. He explains that guests do not fast at a wedding, they feast, because the groom has finally arrived to start the celebration. This second image shows why you cannot patch a worn-out coat with brand-new, unshrunk cloth. When wet, the new patch shrinks. Lacking elasticity, the old fabric's tension completely rips the garment apart. Finally, the ancient leather wineskin, the standard container for fermenting wine. You can see how brittle and rigid the aged leather has become. When filled with fresh, bubbling wine, the expanding gases create immense pressure, violently bursting the stiff seams and ruining everything. Jesus' new reality is too expansive for the Pharisees' rigid system. If they force his grace into their existing boxes, the boxes will completely break. Jesus ends this debate with a haunting observation. No one, after drinking old wine, wants the new, for they say, the old is better. He recognizes that the Pharisees are acting out of comfort. They prefer the religious traditions they have cultivated for centuries. Their opposition comes from an affection for the status quo, which blinds them to the work happening right in front of them. Levi was invited to the table before he quit his job, proving that grace precedes transformation. Accepting that order requires the flexibility of new wineskins. Are we still trying to stretch our own rigid categories to fit a grace that refuses to be contained? Let me know what you think in the comments. Those wineskins are already starting to split. In the next episode, the tension moves from a dinner party to a legal battle over healing on the Sabbath, and the religious leaders begin looking for a way to stop Jesus permanently.